Hey everybody, Notorious here. Welcome back to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to be covering how to use cinching canopy anchors, and I'm going to go over a few different options both for SRS and MRS. And we've all been in a position where we're climbing and our best anchor point is a spar. Spars come in a variety of diameters, from small to large, but they all possess the potential opportunity to become solid anchors for a climbing system for a climber. So sit back, relax, and let's get right to it. So okay, what is the simplest, easiest way to connect or anchor yourself to a spar? Well, that would probably have to be the running bowline. And in order to do this, you need just your rope. So on the positive side, it's not that complex as far as gear is concerned, okay? So you're gonna just take your rope, throw it around, and then you're going to tie a running bowline. And you do that by tying a regular bowline around the standing end of your rope, okay? So I'm going to go up through, around the back, and then down. So now I've connected myself with a running bowline. Unfortunately, a running bowline is not safe to climb on as it is, but there are ways that you can make a bowline safe enough to climb on. One way is a method called the Edwards bowline. Another is called the Yosemite bowline, which is what I'll demonstrate now. You basically take the working end, bring it back around the side of the loop, and then up parallel with the standing end. Now whenever you tie a Yosemite bowline, you have to make sure that you first tighten the original bowline, and then you pull on the working end and tighten the finish. This is what's called an inherently locked knot, because it is extremely unlikely to come undone. So now it's safe to climb on, and I can connect myself, and here I am. I'm ready to climb. Now, the problem with this is that it is possible for this rope-on-rope friction to wear away at this part of your rope. And you know, it's not going to immediately pose a problem, but over time it can, start to deteriorate and become a threat. Also, this method of anchoring oneself is not very ergonomic, because in order to disconnect myself and, maybe adjust the system or whatever, I have to completely undo this knot. So thankfully the Yosemite bowline doesn't jam too badly usually, but still it's a pain to have to continuously undo the knot in order to move around in the canopy. So let's look at the next method, which is much more efficient, and yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so for this next cinching canopy anchor, it is ideal to have either a splice or a sewn eye on the end of your rope. Now, I usually, when I buy ropes, I always have one end spliced or with a sewn eye, because they come in handy quite often, especially for MRS style climbing. and for countless other reasons. Now, the great part about this is, compared to a knot, it is retaining the full strength of the rope, whereas a knot will immediately reduce the strength of your system by 50%. But, I mean, 50% still leaves you with a lot of minimum braking strength, and so you don't need to worry. It's just, you know, just another benefit of the splice and the Sona over a knot. Now, instead of using a knot, we're going to just simply use a carabiner. So make sure you're always using triple action carabiners. Now, the reason for this is, if you climb professionally as an arborist or a tree worker, it's required that you have this type of carabiner on the job, and that's because it will auto lock as soon as you remove your fingers from the carabiner. It locks on its own. Also, the reason it's called triple action is because it requires 3 distinct motions in order to unlock it. I have to push up, twist, and then pull back. Okay? So that reduces the odds of this carabiner somehow coming undone spontaneously on its own significantly. So also, it helps when you need to throw the rope around the tree because it's got a weighted end now. Okay, so we got it around, and now what you're going to do is you're going to connect this carabiner to the working end, the standing end of your rope. And then you can cinch it down and you are good to go. Now, the benefits of this system, again, are there's almost no chance that this carabiner is going to fail to close on you when you connect it to this standing end. Basically, it's set it and forget it. However, if you accidentally clip it like this, that is not good. You always want the gate facing up and out. And the reason for that is because if you were to, be moving around and this gate could potentially move against the tree in such a way that the gate could come undone and open up and release you, and catastrophic failure. Does it happen a lot? No, but it does happen, and it can happen. So make sure that the gate is always up and out. Now, another thing to address is, if you're using this system, you're inherently going to be side loading this carabiner. And what side loading is there is the carabiner is being bent like this, okay? So like that. And carabiners are designed to take forces in this direction, and it's not designed to be used where it gets forces like this, but it is strong enough to take forces like that. It's weakest when it is, you know, forces are applied like this, okay? And so again, you never want to intentionally apply forces like this, but it has a rating for that. It doesn't have a rating for, you know, like that. Now, when you're climbing on something as thick of a diameter as this spar here, this trunk, or stem, whatever you want to call it, because the, you know, the edges, it doesn't, you know, the, I don't know what the word is, but you can see that it's a gradual taper as it goes around, versus if it were a smaller spar, like something like that, the amount of forces would be a lot more extreme because of the fact that there would be much more leverage on either side of the carabiner. And I'll demonstrate that in a little bit. So this is a great choice. A lot of people climb this way. Carabiners, you know, the manufacturer will not say that it is designed to be used this way, but so long as what you're climbing on isn't, you know, super small, you should be okay. And if the spar you're on is like this, you know, you definitely don't really have anything to worry about. The leverage on either side is going to be effectively negligible. So, all right, let's get to the next one. Okay, so the next method for attaching or anchoring yourself to a spar is you take your spliced or Sona end and this will only work if you have a Sona or a splice. So what you're going to do is you're going to take an anchor ring. It can be, you know, anywhere between 28 and 70 millimeters. They'll all work between that range, but smaller is a little better, but not too small because you need to be able to pass the splice end through once and also fit the diameter of the rope for a second time. You'll see what I mean in a second. So you're going to take your anchor ring, stick it onto the end, and then so once you've got it around the tree, you're going to take the anchor ring and then take this splice or sewn end and pass it through the anchor ring just enough to where the eye sticks out. Then you're going to take a carabiner, attach it to the eye, and then you can cinch everything down. And now you have a cinching canopy anchor that can actually be, in an emergency, it does take a lot of effort, but you can, if you really had to, even when there's someone loading this, you can remove this carabiner and release this anchor by just forcing it, you know, through and just working it out and then undoing it, pulling it off. So that's a potential upside in an emergency. But also, when it cinches down, unlike the running bowline or with the Carabiner, it stays in place, okay? It's not going to be moving around, and you don't have to worry about it dropping while you're adjusting it, and so that's a huge benefit. Let's see. Let's go on to the next one, shall we? Okay, so the next method is known as the Texas tug. There are variations on the Texas tug, and this is just one of them. So what you're going to need for this is, you know, a Sona or a splice, and you're going to need a rated pulley. This is just going to be for example, because I wouldn't actually climb on this pulley. I normally use a Pinto pulley, but I don't have it with me. But just like the Pinto pulley, what's great about it is it's rated, or at least the Pinto is rated to up to 50 kilonewtons. And it's also got, you know, on the bottom, it's got that becket there. So it's an extra layer of security in case the pulley were to, you know, fail catastrophically. You would still be caught by the becket. So in order to install this, you're going to simply take your pulley, place it on the standing end of your line, and then take your splice or Sona and feed it into the side plates, or into the middle on, the middle of the side plates. And then you take a Carabiner and you install it like that. And once you've done that, make sure you install it on the outside of the system and not on the inside, otherwise it's going to be banging into the tree. And there's another reason why this is good, and I'll show you in a minute. So now you've got, make sure you can see it, you've got a cinching anchor, and this is going to be really smooth because of the pulley, and it's just going to run very smoothly. And I like this a lot. This is probably one of my favorite systems. Another cool thing about this system is if you needed to, you could grab a bite of rope and open up that Carabiner, and let me move this over here so it operates the way it should. Now, what you can do here is you can move back, and you can continue to move back, and this allows you to, once you get maybe to the other side of a tree, if you needed to, you could uninstall it from a distance. So I can now disconnect everything and move to another part of the tree. So let's move to the next one. Okay, so for this system, we're going to be using what is known as a notch Quickie. It is a compact and very strong device that can be used for a variety of purposes, but where it really shines is canopy anchors. And so it is also, compared to a Carabiner, which has the potential to be cross-loaded, this device, because of its small stature, will not experience much cross-loading at all, if any, under basically all circumstances. However, it does have one orientation where you have to watch out, and I'll show you that in a minute. But other than that, what's great about this is no worries about cross-loading, and it's super strong, super secure, and it's tiny. So yeah, and it's very diverse. So let me show you how you install this. What you're going to do is you're going to, it's got this U shape here, and then it's got a pin with two slick pins on it, which are small little buttons that you depress in order to unlock the mechanism. So, and when you put the pin in, it will, those pins will, as they pass through the holes, they will lock automatically. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this part here, put it on your standing end, and then take your sewn eye or spliced eye and place it between the two holes, and then take this pin and drive it through the two holes. Careful to make sure that you're passing it through the eye as well. Now, I just locked this, but I made a mistake. When installing this, you always want to make sure that the that when you've installed it, that the slick pins are facing up towards the sky. So it should look like this when you install it onto your standing end. So now I've done that, and then again placing the eye in between the two ports, and then pushing to make sure that both of those slick pins definitely go through and definitely are engaged. Because the last thing you want, and I've heard people say that this has happened to them, is that, you know, when they've installed it, they weren't paying attention or something, who knows. Doesn't really matter. The point is, there is the potential for you to engage only one of those slick pins accidentally. And sometimes it may feel like they're both engaged, and you know, that's why you need to visually verify that they are engaged. And by having this end of the device facing up, you don't have to worry about the pins getting pushed when you load it. So now that I've loaded it, you can see that it's pressing on the opposite side. If it were pushing on this side, it would be placing a lot of force on these two tiny pins, and that could be very dangerous. And so now I've installed this, and this is a great system. It's compact, but like I said, there is the potential for the operator to forget to engage the pins correctly, and that could be a problem. Whereas a carabiner, no matter what, it's going to lock automatically, and it's going to have, you know, a locking mechanism designed to inhibit it from being opened. So yeah, but a lot of people do love this system, and I think it's great. Personally, if I had to choose one, I would pick the Texas Tug. But all right, one reason this is beneficial over a carabiner is if you're on a really small spar. So let me try and find one for you so I can show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so here we have a much smaller spar, and the smaller you go, the more what I'm about to explain is exemplified. So if you look at this, we have the Carabiner here, and you can see that it's going to be cross-loaded a lot more than with that larger spar, and that could be problematic. I mean, this Carabiner is going to break long before this spar does, so you know, any cross-loading could, you know, affect the structural integrity of the Carabiner. So in this situation, it is ideal to use something like a notch Quickie, where it's, you know, much smaller profile, pretty much eliminates any cross-loading. You can see it basically goes right up against that nicely, and there's not going to be very much leverage on the Quickie at all. So, and the smaller the spar, the greater the likelihood of cross-loading for a Carabiner of this size. And so, you know, tree climbers and arborists frequently use spars, you know, even 1/4 this size sometimes. And, you know, in a situation like that, a Carabiner is just going to be completely out of the question. What you can do is, if you, there exist smaller Carabiners, such as the DMM Perfecto, and this here, if I were to replace this Carabiner with this Carabiner, the little one, side loading would be reduced significantly, and I would say personally it would be alright to climb on for a spar this size, but any smaller, I would even eliminate this. So you have options, and I just wanted to show you quickly why the Quickie is preferable for this application. Alright, on to the next segment. Okay, so another way that you can anchor yourself to a spar is by using a device called a friction saver. And it's basically a length of rated rope. You basically have 2 rings on either end. One is bigger than the other, and you always install your rope through the smaller one first. This particular friction saver is adjustable. It has a prusik, a 6-strap prusik attached to it here, which allows me to adjust it. And so once I get it where I want it to, it's going to lock in there because of the prusik. So when you install one of these on a spar, you want to make sure that you have good separation between the rings. I like to first install my rope. I put it through the smaller one first, and then through the bigger one. And this is a setup that would be used for someone who wants to climb MRS or moving rope system. All the other methods I've shown you so far have been for SRS, which is stationary rope system. So now So once I've got this together, I'm going to make sure that there's at least a fist's width between the rings. And the reason you do this is to ensure that when tension is placed onto the anchor, it's going to cinch down, versus if the rings were just together, it would only cinch as far as where the rings meet. So now that I've got this, I'm good to go. And you can use it as is with just the rings, and that works really well sometimes. The only problem with this system, in my opinion, is that if you aren't keeping it pretty much slightly loaded at a continuous rate, it has the potential to drop down and lose position. But with this tree, you know, the bark is really abrasive, so it's not moving, thankfully. So yeah, and what I'm going to do now, if I wanted to, in order to make this system run even more smoothly, is I can go back to my friend the Notch Quickie, and I can install a pulley onto the prusik. So now what I can do is I can, these flies. Oops, wrong direction. So I've got it. Make sure when you connect this, you always connect it to the soft connection, so the loop of the prusik, versus the ring. You don't want hardware on hardware. That's a no-no. So now what I can do is I can take my pulley. This is just the Omni block, the mini, and connect this to the system. And now I can now pull this out of the ring, and instead I can connect it into this pulley. Okay, so put it into the pulley like that, and make sure you close the swing plate. Then I'm going to put it through the big ring, and now I can close my system again. And this time I'm going to do the same thing, except I want the pulley to be separated from the big ring by, again, a fist width. So this is a little more than necessary. And now, I don't know if you can see this. So now, instead of it running through a ring and a ring, I have it running through a pulley and a ring. And that's great if you're a stickler for, you know, reducing friction. But, you know, it's more of a luxury than a necessity. And so, yeah, let me show you one last thing, and that'll be the end of this episode. Okay, so that is actually it. I planned on organizing this video a little differently, but that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Some of this content is evergreen, meaning it's copied, but I feel like if there is a topic out there that is worth covering, I will cover it, because I guarantee not everyone in my audience has seen that content produced by someone else. And so, in my opinion, it's better to help disseminate that knowledge further than to cower away from, you know, replicating someone else's content. However, I always make sure I put my own unique twist on what I'm doing, and I make sure that it's not just a blatant copy job. So I'd say probably 30% of this video is 100% original. And, you know, yeah, so thanks so much for tuning in, and definitely subscribe, definitely comment below. If you have any ideas for new videos, please share them with me. I'm eager to hear what my audience wants me to produce. And so, yeah, don't forget to hit that button, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.